Hello, people. This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another lovely vid. In this one, you've already read the title, so basically, I'm going to be talking about the state of music in 1988, how it had changed since 1978, and we're gonna also talk about how people listen to music in 1988. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. When we last left off in 1978, disco was a big deal. Metal had just barely gotten started. Arena rock was big deal. Funk in R&B was a big deal, but rap was big in the underground. So, what changed in the intervening 10 years? Well, disco completely died. New wave came and went. Punk rock was, well, kind of more abound at that point. And pop music just kept on trucking. And by this time, obviously, we had Michael Jackson was known in 1978, obviously. But by 1988, he was the biggest star on earth. Everybody knew who Michael Jackson was by 1988 because Thriller had already came out by this point, which, of course, was the greatest selling album ever until recently when the Eagles' greatest hits supplanted it, which I know Chris at Dixieland Farms will be very happy about. Anyway, so at the time it was definitely a changing of the guard, so to speak. A lot of the old guard had came back for a second round on their careers. Aerosmith was having a bit of a renaissance during the 1980s. They had put out a ton of really good material during that time. And some other 70s bands were still cranking stuff out. Queen was, putting stuff out in the 80s. It was pretty good quality. And just a number of other bands were just kind of doing their thing. Country music, of course, was was starting to slide into absolute garbage by this point, in my personal opinion, introducing tons of pop influences that made it just awful. And now, by this time, rap and hip hop had absolutely exploded in popularity. They were absolutely gigantic musical forces by 1988. They went from being in the underground to absolutely everywhere, and it was completely inescapable. But the biggest change that's nearest and dearest to my own heart, of course, is what happened with heavy metal. Back in the 70s, it was just in an embryonic state, and there were only a few bands that were truly metal. By 1988, that had completely changed. Obviously, we had the new wave of British heavy metal that came along that was absolutely giant in the scene. And then, of course, one band immediately springs to mind, Metallica. They went from completely non-existence in 1978 to 1988 as the year And Justice for All was released. They had their first video on MTV, and they were absolutely gigantic by this point. Not as big as they would be on our next video, but they were still pretty big. And then, of course, that brings me to my next important point. MTV obviously came into existence in between these two time periods. And back then in 1988, MTV actually still played music videos that people enjoyed watching. And it basically gave a gigantic exposure to a lot of artists, to a whole generation of fans that this was an avenue that was not yet um, uh, known prior to this. So a lot of people got exposure to a lot of artists they otherwise wouldn't have, especially people right around my age. As far as where I was in 1988, my musical interest, I hadn't really started to develop yet. I didn't really start to do that till the next year, 1989, myself. But I was definitely aware of what was happening in 1988. I was the tender age of 10 years old. Just keep that in mind. So, just to expound a little bit more on metal, since it's my favorite genre, I mean, it absolutely exploded into. That's when the 80s were when many subgenres formed of metal, and that's when extreme metal really took its shape. That's death metal, black metal, thrash metal, power metal, and I could go on, but I'm not going to. There's an absolute explosion of popularity, creativity, all that. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and let's talk about hair metal, which was what was absolutely dominating the rock radio charts at the time. You had bands like Poison, Motley Crue, Cinderella, Warren. I could go on and on. But of course, when we swing back around in 1998, and most of those bands wasn't doing so hot by that time. So a lot of things had changed between 1978 and 1988. And 1988 was a very interesting time in music. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how people listened to music in 1988. At that time, the venerable LP was no longer the best-selling music format. Oh no. This was the first year that the humble compact disc outsold LPs. This was the first year that ever happened, was 1988. But CDs were not the dominant music format. That wouldn't happen until about 1993 or so. At the time, cassettes were the absolute dominant music format that sold in the greatest numbers. And I think a lot of that had to do with another invention that had come out in the in-between time. And that, of course, is the Sony Walkman. I think that is a big part of the reason of the cassette's absolute explosion in popularity. I think boomboxes helped out a lot, too, with cassettes selling in the numbers they did in 1988. In 1988, cassettes were doing extremely well. But, of course, that's going to change by the time we catch up with our next talk about this. So that's kind of it. That's what I have to say about 1988 and the general state of music. I know I probably left a bunch of stuff out. Let me know in the comments below what your memories of that time period were. What you think was significant, what was unique, all that kind of stuff. As always, if you like this, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.